You're taking this terrible yard and you're transforming it into something that is usable and livable. Transformation is the most sexy thing in our industry.
This episode is brought to you by Hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive on-demand hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out hardscaper.com. You're listening to Hardscaper Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hardscaper Growth Show. I'm your host, Alex from Tackle Block, and today we are joined by Micah Miller from Easton Outdoors, who we were together last night, and he said to me, I don't think any contractor wants to talk to anybody unless it's about signing a job. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with that, and then let's get into what business you have built. What's your take on that philosophy? Where's that opinion coming from?
I think it's a societal issue, if you want to call it an issue. Take contractors in particular. They do not want to talk to the client. They just want to do the job. And most of us want to do a really good job, but we do not want to have to figure out and do this tap dance and try to understand what the client is thinking and whether or not we're reading it right, and then try to figure out what the price points we're supposed to be at, and have to go through all this like soul-sucking minutia. We just want to do the work.
So what is the work that you do? What is Easton Outdoors? What's your business? What's it look like today?
Yeah. So we are primarily hardscape. It didn't start out that way. But we have 3 hardscape crews. We have a water feature install crew. We have a water feature maintenance team. And then we just recently started our paver maintenance division. We're going to do like somewhere around 5.6 to 5.8 this year. And primarily smaller projects. So for the last 5-6 years, we've done about 150 to 200 projects a year. So we're not putting a lot of 7-figure massive projects in the ground. We're doing a lot of 10 to 30,000 just with a process and a system behind it.
So almost 6 million, 5.8 million, 3 construction crews.
Yep. Well, and the pond building.
And the pond building team. What percentage comes from the hardscape side versus the pond building side? Just out of curiosity.
It's probably high 4s is hardscape construction. Yeah. It's majority.
High 4s. And the main thing I wanted to talk about with you today was, I guess you could call it like a marketing discussion, because based on that thing that we opened with, the fact that you don't want to talk to people, there are a lot of things that you've put in place that I guess you could say prevent you from talking to people until it's absolutely time.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about how you approach that, what that plan was, and what you learned along the way.
I think it starts with the initial frustration of the phone ringing and you're trying to figure out whether this person you're talking to is actually your client. That's the initial frustration. And from that frustration stems, well, how do I put every single client through the same kind of test and understand who they are and what they're looking to buy? And when you have like the same process and same steps you go through and the same questions you ask, you're then able to filter out who are not good people, who are not the people that you're wanting to work with. And so for me, I got pretty good at that filtering process over the phone in our sales process. But I was still talking to, 20 people a week, and, 3/4 of them were not somebody we were going to work for. So
the sales process was doing the filtering job.
It was.
But there's just a lot of junk coming in.
Yeah. So I guess let's back up even further from that original question. Is our sales process starts with first they call the office. They get scheduled on my calendar for a phone consult. And usually for that phone consult, I have pictures sent to me by the client. I then have it scheduled in time blocked areas in my calendar. By my office manager, I reach out to the client and talk to them, and this is the official phone consult. And we just talk about what they're looking for in their yard. I look at the pictures, and typically it goes something along the lines of, based on what you're telling me and jobs we've done in the past, it looks like you're talking about a $50,000 budget. And then I just shut up, hear what they say. If they say, okay, sounds great, then I wrap up almost every single call with this more or less this phrase, which is, okay, awesome. Is it okay if I explain to you what happens next? And most of the time they say, absolutely. Say, well, I'm going to come out to your yard armed with a can of spray paint and a tape measure. And we're going to talk through the minutia, the colors, the shape, the design. I'm going to spray paint it on the yard. And at the end of that conversation, if you say, I like it, I love it, I got to have it, at that point, we can move right into our design or contract phase and get you locked into our schedule. If for whatever reason at that point you're not ready to move forward, it's just a $250 consult, goes towards the project at the end. But if you're not ready to move forward, we'll just do that and then go from there. How's that sound? And most people are like, sounds great. Some people are like, I got to talk to my financial advisor. I've got to talk to my wife, whatever it is.
They're non-committal. They're
non-committal,
they're
right.
trying to justify a fear of
they don't want to pay the $250 to have, or $500, or sometimes it's $1,500, depending on the size and scope of the job. If they don't want to pay that on the front end, you know that they're not going to be your client.
Mm.
So it starts with the office, moves to that phone consult, then moves into the yard consult. And then most of the time, and when I say most of the time, I have a very high, like an 80% close rate once I'm in the yard, like high 80s. Most of the time we move forward, we write up the contract, get a signature deposit, and then it moves into our pre-production. So that sales process still takes a reasonable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Have you quantified the time?
yes, I actually track most of the time I spend on jobs. So example would be during COVID, like $100,000 job, it was sub 10 hours to sell, from the design time to the drive time to the actual being on site. During the 23, which I marked that as a very distinct difference in the market, how it was buying. There was a big change going into 23. COVID was over. I noticed that I was spending maybe 15 to 20 hours per job.
So a 50 to 100% increase in selling time.
But brand mattered to almost everybody. So it was an easier sale because our brand was strong. Before COVID, everybody just wanted the yard. In COVID, people just wanted the yard. They didn't really care. And then I've noticed another marketable increase, maybe as much as 30 hours for a $100,000 job this year. But people are asking for all of the options. And I would think, normally it goes like, okay, this is 30, that's 32, that's 34. What's the difference? Can you give me a breakdown in these different products? And I think a lot of unseasoned salesmen might say, okay, they're price checking me. They want to see, like, they're penny pinchers. They're kicking tires. Like, they're not a good client. And I kind of thought to myself, I said, what if these people are actually wanting to be educated? So I slowed the process down to educate them. And what I'm seeing most of the time is, if we're going into a $60,000 job, it becomes a $90,000 job. If we're going into a $100,000 job, it becomes a $140,000 job, because people see the options, they understand them, and then they option themselves up. Or they say, let's hit pause. I really want that 34. I really like the best thing you showed me, but I can't afford it right now. I'm going to come back to you in 6 months when I have the money.
So I guess I'm glad I opened with that first statement, because if
we haven't gotten back to this yet.
no, but what I mean is, if the time spent with clients is increasing and increasing and increasing, but you don't want to talk to them,
Right.
how do you make it so that it's worth it? You were saying at one point 80% of those conversations were turning into nothing, and now they are.
Right.
So what changed, or what did you change?
Yeah.
There's external factors, economically, market wise. Like, it's become more competitive in the last 18 or so months.
Yep.
Because people were spending a little bit less. People were hanging on to their dollars a little bit more. There was some market uncertainty. So that kind of made for a bit more competition. But now things seem to be turning back around, at least in the short term, at least leveled out, perhaps about to rebound. So Um, yeah, knowing that, what are the things that you had done prior to make that in the super competitive market that was this past year?
Yeah.
You had a very good year. Every conversation you had was a fruitful one. And not only were you concluding the sales, you were basically upserving them all the way up the ladder to the full package, it sounds like,
Yeah.
because of your approach. So it starts with,
Something way before.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'll put this out there. This was the hardest year in sales I've ever had. Like it was not an easy year because of all that time that it took. I mean, I'm spending so much time and these are people who have paid for design. So they've made it into the fold, if you will. They've given me a budget. They're moving forward. So these are not the initial conversation, the people that I don't want to talk to. These are more the kind of the exciting conversations that we're having that people are wanting to be educated. Um, to not get the phone to ring unless it's somebody that is going to buy from you means that people need to understand who they're talking to and what their options are before they pick up the phone. And I decided that our website needed to have pricing transparency on it.
okay, what does that mean?
I want somebody to be able to go onto our website, look at a job, and say, I can't afford that. I'm not going to call them. Conversely, I also want somebody to go onto my website. I really like that. That's inside of my budget. I also want this little thing added to it. That is exactly what you can do on our website. We have calculators on our website that you can go through and you can actually build out a project. And yes, you do need to understand what the square footage and materials you're looking for in order to use them effectively, but at least they give you a good budget and breakdown of what you would spend. We have project recaps that show a job that was built out, what went into the job, and exactly how much that job cost to build. We have guide pages that show ranges for lookalike type items. So a 10-foot kitchen or a 15-foot kitchen, those are all built out and people can see. We have pre-optioned ponds that are, hey, this is our 10 by 14. Here's what it costs. You can buy this package or you can buy a custom thing, but you can buy this package. And so we have all these packages that are already pre-built out, standardized. The same kit goes out to build that job. So in those three main ways, we have all of our pricing built out. So whoever you are, whatever your personality type is, generally you'll find one of those and it'll resonate with you. And it just makes the sales process really easy.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
So what was the work going into it? Because I've been on your website a few times, and yeah, there's the calculator, yes. There's the packages, yes. But all that educational content that you've produced as well,
Yeah.
like that's not production time. You're not building stuff, you're not selling stuff, you're walking around job sites explaining how you're building stuff, why you build it a certain way.
Yep.
And I guess just thinking about it as I'm asking the question, to do it and record it and make it video saves you from having to do it 1,000 times a year, explaining it to people every time you meet them.
Yes. So if I get asked a question more than, let's say, a dozen times, we're writing a blog about it because I don't like repeating myself.
So how did you track those questions?
It just, I'm not like I am a systems guy, but I'm not a crazy system guy
Yeah.
like that. But if you hear the same question over and over again, like one of the perfect examples of this is, I really want to have a lawn. How should I grow a lawn? And I probably told people how to grow their grass 400 times. And that's probably way more than that. That was low. So I just wrote a blog, how to grow a lawn. We don't even grow grass. That's not part of what our company does, but I wrote a blog about it because I got so frustrated with everybody else. And then I have it as a shortcut in my phone. So anytime somebody says, how do I grow grass? That's a great question. Can I send you a blog I wrote?
Well, it's good. It's about saving time, and really you're being super
Yeah.
defensive
You
of your
anyway.
schedule to spend your time on the things that are going to be productive for the company. Telling people to grow their grass, unless you're a fertilizer company,
Yeah.
it's not helping you.
Yeah. I mean,
You're just
it's
helping
frustrating.
them.
Yeah.
So something else that you mentioned before we were recording here was, um, I'll let you say it, but there's a very strong percentage of people that don't want to talk to you either. You don't want to talk to them,
Yep.
but they don't want to talk to you.
This is indicative of where we as a society are going. Statistically, 75% of people do not want to talk to a salesman to make a purchase. Salesmen have a bad rap. They're sleazy. They, it's a persona that everybody has around them. So what that looks like is think about, Walmart now will come and put the groceries in your fridge with a click of a button. Chick-fil-A, you can order it all on your phone. Starbucks, Tesla, you order a car with a $250 deposit. All of these touchless interactions. I think about Carvana. You go on Carvana, you go select the car you want, you do this, do the financing. You never once talk to somebody that shows up in your yard. That's the way of the future. I mean, that's how people want to buy. They want to have every single piece of information they need in order to make a buying decision laid out in a way that is ergonomic and makes sense to them. And they might sit on it, ruminate it, look at it, and sometimes it needs to be flashy and it needs to be in media form. Sometimes it needs to be a lot of text and backing up your claims. Sometimes it just needs to be sexy, right? And then people want to be able to see that whole process, understand it, click around in it, and then make that purchase.
So what does that look like to you?
Yes. So,
Like, are there steps to this? Is there a guideline?
and this is from Marcus Sheridan. This, if you don't know Marcus Sheridan, you guys have to look him up. He's written a book called They Ask You Answer, which is what my entire website is modeled after. Um, he's saying that there's 5 steps to making a successful online purchase. The first is to be ability to self-assess. So let's just go through Tesla's website. We'll just use them as an example because they do this really well. Self-assess. So you go in there and you can look between the X, the Y, the 3, the Cybertruck. You can go look at all those different models and you'll kind of look through them and you'll self-assess and you'll say, okay, based on what I'm seeing, the personality that I am, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Y as my vehicle. So then you click on the Y. And inside of the Y, you get to what's the next, which is the self configure or self-select, right? So you understand the differences. So now you've selected the Y. And inside of there, which is phase 2, the self-select, you move to phase 3, which is the pricing. And so all these are kind of like symbiotic. They all happen somewhat at the same time.
You're working them down a path.
Correct.
Pick the model. Once you look at the model, what options do you want? How do you have this vehicle configured?
Yep. Understand the price points and also being able to see as you're
How badly do I want that option?
how badly do I want that option, what the price point is. And then the fourth thing is to be able to self option. So I want the black wheels instead of the aluminum wheels. And then the last is to be able to self schedule, to be able to pick a date on the calendar when you'll actually be able to receive that car. Those are the 5 steps to a successful purchase. So it's self-assess. So for a hardscape contractor, what that looks like is give people a quiz. And you can ask questions, and you want things that'll reject people from the process. So things could be, do you mind cracks? Cracks are, no, I do not want to ever have a crack. Do you mind poly? Well, I never want to have poly. If somebody says I never want to have poly sand, then they're rejected from the process. If they say they don't mind cracks in their hard surface for their patio, then you might reject them from the process as well and send them down a concrete route. Do you mind sealing your pavers every year? You might send them to a stamped concrete because that might fit in their budget better. And these are all things that we wouldn't do as a company. So as you're going through this self-selection, you understand what designs they want, what shapes they want, what elevations, challenges, things like that through that self-elevation or self-selection. And through that like assessment and through that quiz, you say, okay, you're not the best fit for the product that we're selling. Here's what we would recommend instead.
Is the phrasing of the question very important?
I
Like I noticed like your options were like, I mind or I don't mind.
Right.
In my head, I was thinking like I don't like, or I want or I don't want. Like,
Right.
is it
I think it's important because if somebody says at the end of this question, you've asked a series of things, or at the end of this questionnaire, you've asked a series of things talking about the maintenance and the upkeep, the design and the aesthetics, and then the application, how it's installed, their tolerance for the length of time and destruction in their yard for when it's installed. If you go through, ask a couple questions around each one of those, you'll find whether or not they want stamped concrete, regular brushed concrete, or pavers. You'll find out whether they want something that's a clean design, a traditional design, or just has no design, as a square. You also find out whether or not they have a tolerance for having chaos in their yard during the construction process. And if they don't have a tolerance, again, they get rejected from your process. So the self-assessment, and I have a questionnaire written out for this exact thing, to kind of give people an idea of what they want. You present it back to them, and you put check boxes next to the things.
What you said.
This is what you said, and because you said this, this, and this is the best option for you.
And what do you have any insight as to what percentage make it through and like they are a fit versus what percentage kind of self-reject?
I don't, because this is all in development, all of this. So we have not put this live for people to actually go through. My guess is that probably over half of the people taking this quiz would not make it through to be a good fit. And that's kind of the goal, but that's the cool thing about this self-assessment, because once the self-assessment is done and they see what they selected and how their questions affected, they now have a more awareness of who they are and what they're looking for. And most people will go ahead and step over a barrier and move into the next phase, because they're going to look at that and they'll be like, I just really like the way that looks. I just want that, right? I'm okay understanding that I've got maintenance. There might be a weed in my crack or something like that in my paper. I'm okay. I'm going to step over this barrier. I'm going to move into that next phase, which is the self-selection. So, okay, I've selected to get a curvy patio in pavers, about this size. Like, I'm moving into that next phase of the self-selection, right? Because they did the self-assessment. They maybe looked in the mirror and didn't like what they saw, and they decided to be somebody different. Whoops.
Okay.
And decided they want to be somebody different. So that's the self-selection phase. And the self-selection phase, again, if you want to go back to Tesla, is being able to pick the model you want. So all of them are presented in front of you. Hey, like the way you answered this questionnaire, stamped concrete is your best fit for your price point, for your tolerance, for maintenance.
So that's like a response at the end of the questionnaire. It would show up as a result.
But,
What if that's not what I want?
that's not what you want. So now you decided to self-select into something different.
Okay.
And the selection process,
I basically accepted whatever other things that I said, I don't really want
Right.
that. No, like, well, I want that, but that's what comes with it. So,
Right.
yeah, okay.
and it's a cool kind of, process to squeeze thought process, but also it's a concept of vanguarding. And vanguarding, the word vanguard is from the Roman army, where they sent the foremost, they're kind of like their assassin team, essentially. When armies were fighting in lines against each other, one line against another, what the Romans would do is they would make kind of like a triangle shaped formation, and they would pierce through the rank. And then the rest of their ranks would be able to peel around and come in and fight the ranks from behind. So the idea of vanguarding is you're sending out your most pointed argument, your most pointed thing that might get rejected first, to kind of break down the barriers. So when you say concrete is not the best, or concrete is the best fit for you, pavers are not, you vanguarded. You've got ahead of potential issues or potential concerns that they might have later, because you've explained why you think concrete is best for them. You've explained why pavers are not a good fit. You've explained why they shouldn't have an outdoor kitchen. They don't have the price tolerance for it. So you've gone through all these things, and you've gotten ahead of a lot of the objections you might get into the sales process later.
It's kind of like a challenger sale approach too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because by doing that self-assessment, if they've passed that first
Yeah.
barrier, like you said, they're that much more serious because they are now exposed to what it comes with, what it doesn't come with, what the recommendation is, and what you've decided to go for anyway.
Right. Yeah.
If that recommendation differs from what you wanted. And if it aligns, well, then perfect. You're in the right place. Let's keep going.
And this falls directly in line with this concept. Daniel Pink, he's a master negotiator, is his tag. Daniel Pink has this concept that in just the last maybe 7 years, we moved into what is called information parity versus everything for all of history before that was information disparity.
Mm-hmm.
And what information disparity means is if you had a donkey you were selling me, you know the entire history of the donkey. If you had a car you're selling me, you know the entire history of the car. I know nothing about it. If you had a farm, a piece of land you were selling me in the past, I know nothing about it. You know everything about it. I'm not from I could ask around and find some information, but you are the key. You are the holder. In the last 7 years is what Daniel Pink assesses that we've moved into what is called information parity. I can go buy a car and I can know more about the car than the salesman I'm buying it from.
Mm.
I can look up on Glassdoor and know whether or not Techo Block's a good place to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can find just about any piece of information you want online about anybody, about anything. So we've moved into this ability to be more educated than the person that you're actually buying from, or at least be equally educated from the person you're buying from. So it's leveled the playing field. It's no longer this, I can have information that you don't have while I'm trying to sell you something to get something over on you. It's getting really, really hard. And so this idea of this self-assessment is give people as much information. If you're the source of that information, they remember that you were the source of that information. And now you're the reason that there's information parity. And when you're the reason that there's information parity, then you have a cornerstone in the market.
There's a lot of trust that gets built with that.
Massive amount of trust.
This episode is brought to you by Proseco. Today's homeowners expect low to no maintenance for their outdoor living space, and Proseco's line of specialty hardscape products are the answer. They're designed to go beyond basic cleaning and protection for pavers, slabs, walls, and coping, and help hardscapers stand out from the competition. Whether you're dealing with stubborn rust or hard water staining, or need lasting protection from water, salt, graffiti, or just everyday wear and tear, Proseco has a wide range of solutions for every challenge. Some of my favorite protectants are Paver Enhancer, which really makes colors rich and vibrant, and Salt Guard, which will protect your client's investment in even the harshest winter climates. Plus, their new adhesive is one of the strongest glues I have ever used. Visit Proseco.com or TechoBlock.com to learn more and connect with your local rep for samples and job site training opportunities. With Proseco, elevate every stone, every project, every time.
In your model, you said the self-assessment part is something you're working on.
Yep.
Do you have something that currently works in that phase today, or you've recognized that you need to build that as an additional layer now?
It's coming as an additional layer to be automated. I mean, we definitely go through it in our phone consult process. But again, I'm trying to, if the phone rings, I want it to be like a 90% chance that I'm going to work with somebody if the phone rings. Right. And the more information we put online, the more we bring that information parity to our industry, then the closer we'll get.
Because it sounds like the pieces you do have today in those 5 steps are 2, 3, and 4.
So when I first was introduced to these 5 phases, I felt like I had 3.5 of them.
Okay.
I was missing the self-scheduling.
Yeah.
And I was missing all of the self-assessment in an automated form.
So the top and the bottom of
Yep.
the list.
But I understood how to put together the other 3 very, very quickly in a way that makes sense online. It's easy to do. Out of the 150 to 200 projects we've done over the last, 5-6 years, each year. So whatever that stacks up to around 1,000 patios. Of those patios, most of them fall into just a few design buckets. They're largely the same patio. And so this is kind of where this model, this self-select idea is coming from. Number 2 is, what if I just had pre-designed jobs that I could just plug and play in people's yards, and then they just have to select through the designs that I've already created? Most people are already picking just a design, but I'm just having to kind of walk through the yard with them to make that design make sense to them in their yard. So what if the marketing, the phase 2 was so clear, and you could so clearly see the difference between the designs and what they are and what their advantages are and what the materials are. But if you could so clearly see that in an online form, you'll be able to self-select very quickly. You've already done the self-assessment, you can self-select. So that's where I'm at right now is I've got the standardized designs that we're actually rendering and making 3D so that you can see them very clearly on an online form.
So people look at it like, I want something like that.
Yep. It's not something like that. It
It's
will
that.
be that. Right.
Or the like
Pre-
sizing and access to the space and like all these things come into play.
Yeah. So
Elevations.
they do. I don't believe that this model can work. Excuse me. I don't believe that this model can work everywhere. We're in a very flat coastal region. It works really well for us. We don't have a lot of elevation challenges.
Yeah.
Probably work somewhere, pretty much everywhere in Florida. It would probably work just about anywhere in Texas. Maybe not going to work in Canada. Maybe not going to work in New Jersey. Maybe not going to work in the Midwest because of elevations. But that could be version 2, right? Version 1 works in our market because we're in a flat coastal area.
Even in another market, like if it just depends on what type of project you see yourself repeatedly doing.
Yeah.
If every job you build is a 2-tiered patio because every backyard in the city is a slope, well,
yeah, and if
that's the model.
The last 100 patios, they probably, because we have personality as designers, we have things that we like to see inside of spaces, we have materials that we gravitate to, and we definitely talk our clients into using the materials that we like the best. Like that's a fact. We have opinions, and people hire us because of our opinions and our designs. If we were to look back at the last 100 of them, you might see evolution as you go along between them, but you would definitely see some consistent strands. Like, I like this paver, so I'm going to bring this out and show this sample. And clients are like, looks good to me. I'm going to use that paver. There's going to be a lot of similarities.
So you've put a ton of time into your website.
Yep.
A lot of companies, this isn't a shot at anybody, but a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on their websites or have not recently. They spent a lot of time building it 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They haven't really been revisiting it, in part probably because they just got crazy busy with other stuff. COVID hit. Everyone's just worried about getting jobs done.
Yeah.
Now the market has tightened up a little bit. Again, like we said, probably leveling out now, but still, it's feeling a little more competitive. Just the vibe in the room when you're talking to people, it's a little more competitive. So having a killer website is important, but that's only one piece of the whole marketing puzzle.
Correct.
You were talking to me earlier about, well, it looked like a bullseye, looked like rings of focus, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's just the easiest way for me to put my thoughts in.
So what is that, and what's your take on that?
So I would be curious. Do people ever can people respond to this? Is there a place where they can put comments in and like?
I mean, they can write DMs, they can write comments.
I would love to get some DMs on this. I would love to see if my assessment on this is correct. I've definitely polled a lot of people across the nation, and from the people that I've talked to, this is rang true. Is that November of 22 into early 23, the phone stopped ringing. And for most people who were using Google or Angie or whatever as they were paying for leads, they ramped their budget up sharply in that period trying to get the phone to ring, and it didn't do a thing.
They just kept throwing money at
it, and people stopped calling. So I would love to hear from you guys listening to this podcast if that's true. Like, is that assessment true? Did you actually struggle in that time period getting the phone to ring? Because that's kind of the crux of what my thoughts on marketing are built on.
Okay.
Is that marketing goes back to person to person. It goes back to word of mouth. It goes back to actually having a relationship with your clients. Everybody's always asking, how can I get the phone to ring more? Well, have you called a client that you did a job for, a year ago and just checked in?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
No.
Most people haven't.
More about the jobs you did 10 years ago. Right. 8 years ago, 5 years ago.
And I think the root of why we wouldn't call them is because we're afraid that they would say, everything looks good, but there's one spot that's settled. And then you have to go deal with that.
Mhm.
The converse of that is, well, I guess let's follow that to the end. Yeah, I'm so mad at you. I don't know why you're calling me, this and that or whatever. Okay, you've already got their money. The job's already done. It's over. Or you could go out there, do a little repair, have a conversation with them. And I bet you 50% of the time you're going to find something you would sell them.
Has that been your experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's an example? Something that it's a easy add-on and has happened many times.
Adding a couple lights is super easy. We'll go out. Hey, one light burnout. We're out there. You want to add another light while we're here? Absolutely.
Since we're here,
Yeah. Okay, just paid for the visit. That's an easy, happens all the time.
Yeah.
Add-on.
That's a no-cost effort. It costs time, but there's no dollars invested in it.
Yeah.
If you reach out to people you've already built some trust with.
Absolutely. And we've already paid for those clients. We've already, for us, there's a client acquisition cost that I did for 23. I have not done it for 24, but in 23, it cost us $1,700 to acquire one client. And what that aggregated cost is it's from all of our marketing spend. It's from all of my time as a salesman. So my commission as a salesman, all of the time that goes into, um, all of the marketing aspects. So if we're paying for hosting our website, if we're paying for wrapping our trucks, for t-shirts, anything that's marketing, plus the commissions that you would pay out. And so it costs us $1,700 all in for each client between all of those costs. Take out the sales commission just to get a lead. The average across the country is around $150 just for one lead. Is it worth having a 10-minute conversation with a past client that you've already spent $150 on? If you want to make it that simple, it's costs more than that. But if you want to make it that simple, that's it. Marketing isn't much more complicated than that. It's being present and in the market so that people remember who you are. And the best thing that we can do is follow up, because people forget our phone numbers. They forget who we were. They forget, we think it's like, man, I did that job. That was so cool, this and that. They forgot who we were. They forgot who, they just remember like, yeah, those guys were nice. But
Yeah, they got the thing they wanted and they moved on with their life.
absolutely,
Yeah.
they did. So for me, marketing is focused largely on making sure that we're giving a client a good experience from start to finish so that they do remember us. And then it also is us following up, checking in. How is everything going? Is there anything else we can do? And it's not a call that you always want to do, but it does result in work most of the time. On the website side, I have this bullseye. Back to that.
Yeah.
I kind of took a detour there, but
Yeah, but I think it's a valid thing. Like, before even talking about spending money on marketing,
call people.
what are you doing? Things that are entirely in your control that cost you nothing. Give them a great experience.
Yep.
Follow up with them and circle back after a period of time and see how things are going.
Yeah.
And ask for other opportunities.
Yeah, we have a rule in our business that if you're thinking about somebody, call them. It does, for whatever reason. You can call it ESP or whatever. 9 times out of 10, my guys will come back and say, we said so-and-so's name. So I went ahead, most of the time we said so-and-so's name and I didn't call them. And then I got a call from them later that day. I was like, see, I told you, like, if you're thinking about them, you got to call them, because somehow, like, when that happens, they're there. So we have a rule in our business that if you think about somebody, if you have a thought about somebody, shoot them a text right then and there. Don't wait, because it's much better for us to be on the front of that, to send them the message, to be like, if you're like, it doesn't make a difference what thought you're having about them. If you thought about a client, send them a message. Just like, hey, I thought about you. How's everything going?
Yeah. This book here, we'll talk about this book after when we're done, but this book talks a lot about that too.
Yeah. It's a weird phenomenon. Like,
But people like to know that they're being thought of.
yeah, but
Like,
it's
just
weird
that, like,
that
that
there's-
interaction, I associate positive things with you.
Right.
Is you're like, hey, I'm just thinking about you. How's your family?
Yeah.
How's that job holding up? Anything we can do to help you? Like,
And sometimes it's
wow, no one ever calls for that.
And sometimes it's a bad thing. Like, you drop the ball, you dropped the ball, and then all of a sudden you remember that you dropped the ball. Like, you forgot, and then you remember, shoot them a message right then. Don't wait for them to message you and say,
Yeah.
hey, you dropped the ball.
Well, you're taking ownership of the situation. And you know what? I messed that thing up. I realized that. I'm sorry. I'm on it.
Yep. It makes a huge
Makes me feel better because I don't want to have to call you to give you shit.
right. That's not something, and you've probably been putting it off. And you put negative waves toward me, and then all of a sudden that felt yeah. So on the going back to that bullseye, it's 4 concentric circles. So at the very center of that circle is what you should be doing first for your marketing. Because everybody always asks, what should I work on? What should I spend my money on? How should I market my business? What should I spend my efforts, my time, my team? Where should I put the marketing spend that we have? And you can go through an assessment and figure out where these people stand. But most people will quickly know where they stand. And so this is the phone call thing is what needs to be always going on. This is actually how you spend money on marketing. At the center of that bullseye is your website. Your website needs to be so good to convince somebody to buy from you without actually ever having to pick up the phone and talk to you. And what that looks like is there is pricing. There are job recaps. If you don't have job recaps on your website, you absolutely have to have job recaps. And what a job recap is it just shows pictures of the before, has a description, shows pictures of the after, and explains the materials you used and why you did the job that way. And then it has the price on it. That's a job recap. If you have 4 of those on your websites, you're going to be ahead of 90% of the market. So that's a good website. A good website also needs to have a place where somebody can schedule a call with you. Your calendar needs to be organized enough where people can go onto your website, they can see an open slot on your calendar, book it, and actually have a phone call with you. If you had just those 2 things on your website is probably better than, I would venture to say 99% of other contractors, because most contractors have a 4-page website that has some shitty pictures from 1990 on it.
Is there stuff that is completely irrelevant on a website that people do all the time? It's like, this is not helping anything. This is a waste of time.
Usually about me pages are terrible. I don't know.
Yeah.
But having generic pictures or pictures that aren't of your work, that you're setting yourself up for failure. If you've got some stock photos from Adobe on your website that aren't actually pictures of things that you can produce, and that's borderline deception in my opinion. I see that a lot. Like, okay, your website looks good, but what can you actually build?
What do you do if you're just starting, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I would go to somebody like TechCablock and say, okay, I need pictures of these jobs. Can I use these? But I would make sure that it's known, like, here are projects that
The inspiration gallery kind of thing. It's not.
you don't say this is a job we've done. You say, if you're looking for a project that looks like X, we would love to help you out. Right. And you have to find that balance.
But I have to.
Just arriving. There is a process and a journey that we all have to go through in our businesses. And to think that we can shortcut it and just arrive at building really awesome, huge spaces is false. There's no shortcut to it.
No. There rarely are in life and business in general.
Sure.
You got to grind through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So marketing priorities, number 1 thing to spend money on, website. Most important pieces of that are pricing, job recaps, and ability to schedule.
And the pricing can be baked into that job recap. You don't have to have a separate page.
Okay.
But those job recaps, even if you just had 4 on your website, that's way above. So those are the key elements of a website. And then you move out to phase 2, which is kind of being verified. And the idea is that you should not be able to scroll to the bottom of my social media, that there should be so much post and so much content that I have that you cannot find the bottom of it. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be fantastic, but there just needs to be enough of it that you're seeing my face, you learn to trust me, you learn to like me, and through my social media that you're going to go back to the website and say, okay, I went to the website, I saw these job recaps, then I went to his Facebook, I liked the guy, I'm going to give him a call, right? So you went and verify that what was on the website was true. Social media makes it really easy for us to be verified.
So basically, you're creating an abundance of credibility building content.
Right. And that could literally
pictures
be
of jobs.
FaceTime or live video of you just walking around a job.
You just built this, or we're building this.
We're building this, and it doesn't have to be good. That's the crazy part. It's like everybody says, I can't be on camera. I can't do this. I can't spend time. I'm not very good on camera. Who cares? Get on camera and say, I'm not very good at this. This is my second Facebook Live I've ever done, but I'm really excited about this job. Let me show you all the details about it. It's that easy.
The biggest trend in outdoor living right now is wellness retreats at home. The calming sound of running water is at the heart of creating that spa-like escape, and with Atlantic Owasa, adding this element is easier than ever. Their professional-grade water feature kits and spillways are simple to install, letting you bring that soothing flow to any project. We've used these products on a few of our Hardscaper Showcase projects, and our clients couldn't be happier with the results. Plus, Atlantic Owasa offers training sessions and contractor rewards to help you grow your expertise and your business. Check out Atlantic-oase.com to learn more and take your projects to the next level.
I believe the next thing on social media is being so raw and showing all of our imperfections that people know it's not AI. Like that's what's coming next. We have to be authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. So outside of that ring,
Yep.
you've created enough content out there that when they
Your My Google,
dig a little bit more about you,
yep. Your My Google business is set up.
you
Your
have reviews.
TikTok, your everything is all, and it doesn't have to be good, but you're getting on all the platforms.
You exist for real because it's easy to build a website too. So like it's evidence of being real and active and
Yeah. Once a week would be a minimum. 7 times a week would be a great starting point. Yeah.
Yes.
Being consistent and active. And the best post you can actually do is before and after. That's the most valuable.
People love the transformation. Yeah.
The most valuable. And the evolved version of a before and after is a Facebook Live explaining what you're about to do, and then a Facebook Live showing what you've done. That's the evolved version of it.
Before and after. Okay.
People love transformation. Transformation is the most sexy thing in our industry. You're taking this terrible yard and you're transforming it into something that is usable and livable. That is the sex. That is what we're doing. That's the sexy part of what we do.
It really is. It really is. I don't think there's anything that shows off your expertise and your skills more.
That's it. That's the gold standard for content. Yeah. So the next phase is awareness. So you've done a good job with your website. You've got people on your social media. You need to drive more people towards your core. And so this is where you would spend time with getting t-shirts. You would get yard signs. You would get door hangers that say "Pardon our dust," and you hang it on the 5 houses next to all of your clients that you're working for. You make sure you hand out stickers. You do all kinds of stuff to kind of bring awareness to your brand as a whole. You start maybe doing some collaborations. You maybe are going to BNI or, some sort of networking group to kind of bring that awareness to your business. So you're working on things that might drive people to your social media and then to your website, or vice versa. It might drive somebody to your website and then back out to your social media and then back into the website. So you're trying to bring attention
closer to the center.
And there's a ton of different ways. I'm being more generic in that because there's a lot of different ways to kind of drum. You could host a charity event. You could go run a fundraiser.
Let's get the name out there.
Yeah. You're trying to just get awareness. People know.
Getting the name out there without the other two pieces. Basically what you're doing is you're getting the name out there, but there's no way for me to verify if you're good or not. There's no way for me to see if I actually want your product or not.
Yeah.
You need the supporting evidence. Just throwing the name out there all over the place. And it's a smoke show. Like
this, I believe this awareness needs to be tied to the personality of us in some fashion. Like this awareness needs to be kind of, because when you move beyond this, then you get into the recognition, which is the billboards, the TV, the radio. So in this awareness, like we just need to take as much like personality, like we need to have our core team, core followers, our core supporters, the people that love us, championing our name. Like that's kind of the awareness phase. That third phase is really getting the community to like us. And then when you move into that final phase, that's the recognition. And most people, in my opinion, this is probably going to cut a couple people. If you've racked your truck before you had a great website, you probably did it from an ego play. You shouldn't have wrapped your truck without a good website. That is literally putting the cart in front of the horse. What are people seeing when they see your wrapped truck? Where are they going now that they've seen you? It just makes you feel good.
Well, they could go to my Instagram, playing devil's advocate here, but
Okay.
Go to my Instagram.
And how is that going to convert a client?
They should send me a DM.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
What about pricing? Are they the right client? Now you've got to spend time with them on the phone and talk to them,
Mhm.
right? You did nothing. It's all out of order. And it's typically one of the easiest things to do. But I believe as you work on that website, then you work on that, your verifiability, and then you work on getting your community aware of who you are. Your brand actually refines, and who you are as a company will actually be more, it'll be more aware to you. And then when you wrap your truck, it can literally just be as simple as your logo, because you don't need to put anything on there. You don't need to put anything else. You don't need to have your phone number on it, because you just need people to see oh yeah, that's easy.
Well, I think it's kind of like the saying, begin with the end in mind. Like the website, what you're describing is a place where business converts. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm trying to create a store,
It's a store.
and if I'm creating a store, I need to know, what are the things that we're selling in the store? How much am I going to sell those things for? How are we going to process
Yeah,
those
that's
transactions? What inventory do we have?
Yep.
How do we manage all that stuff? Then, okay, we know that. How are we going to make people aware of the store now? And if you start advertising a store before you have a store, well,
Right.
what are you doing?
But we build pavers. Everybody can see it. Well, no, they can't.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think what your point of, like, it clarifies kind of what the brand is, or what the brand is going to be, is important too, because if these are the projects that we do, and they say, as you're building the website, you identify, these are the projects that we like to do. These are the customers that we want to work for. These are the customers we don't want to work for. These are the core questions to building a brand as well, because you want to attract people who like who you are and what you do, for who you are and what you do. And you want to build kind of a little community behind you that supports that.
Yeah.
And that brings a lot of credibility, and the credibility is the first step in establishing the trust, because sales at the end of the day is the transfer of trust. I trust you
Right.
to build this project for me exactly the way that we've discussed,
Yeah.
on time, on budget, without any issues, like you've promised. I'm trusting you.
Yeah.
Here's the money.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out all the things that lead up to that, and the way that you framed it makes a lot of sense to me. Outside of spending money on those recognition things, like you said, like TV, radio, billboard, truck wraps, whatever, like, are there other things that fall in that category? Like, that's
Billboard is
really like
probably-
the last thing you should be doing.
Yeah. Billboard is probably my biggest pet peeve. I drive down the road, I see a billboard, and I love to go to these billboards, the website. And I'll look at these brands that are paying, I don't know, $3,000 a month for a billboard, and I'll go to their website, and I don't understand what the point of the website is. There's no clear path for me to get from who they are to actually purchasing them.
Just throwing money out the
Just
window.
throwing money.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of something. I think the concept is like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine in marketing, is that I'm just going to go ahead and sponsor, somebody asks for a little bit of money or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and throw some money at a charity. I'm going to do this and that, just get our name out there. People will associate it with the good cause. If you haven't done the other things,
How are they going to buy for?
right? Like that's the final,
Yeah.
that's the end. Like that's the end of all of this, is that, is getting people back into the core. But I think a lot of times we spend time just like trying to be a good person before actually working on phase 1 and 2. Like we're just being a good person, hoping that people will remember us, but people don't like, I guarantee you people don't.
You want to be nice and you want to be liked.
But people don't.
These are things
They
that
don't
people
know the
innately know.
company.
Yeah,
They're not gonna remember
exactly.
that. Like,
No, I mean, it's, if you, like, really, it's boiling down to like pure, objective, cold business decision. What's the first thing we have to do? We have to make a thing that converts interest into dollars.
and I love your shopping cart analogy. Like, what are you putting in the shopping cart?
Yeah.
What does it cost? How can we get people to see that?
I think not enough time. Well, I mean, we're saying the same thing, but not enough time gets spent on the development of the website. And then subsequently, not enough time gets spent on developing the sales process, was what we opened with. But without those two things, you don't have a desired path for a prospect to become an actual satisfied customer at the end of the day.
Yep.
You're kind of winging it all the time. And even if you know it and it works pretty well for you, you're also putting yourself at the mercy of everything lives and dies with you.
Yep. And whether or not you can perform on that call.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the more you can put the odds in your favor, the more the business becomes a business and not a person who's conducting business.
Right.
And that's a very strong position to find yourself in too, because then you get to the point where, okay, well, now I can hire a salesperson. This is the playbook. This is what we do. The website feeds you people that already fit the bill.
Yep.
Go make it happen now.
That's right.
And you can really assess the quality of the person that you have as well, because all the environment you've created, it's successful, it works.
Yep.
So now it's on the individual, and it's not on 20,000 external factors that result in excuses, and you end up hanging on to people because you like them or because you think, well, maybe next time, or maybe let's give them another shot. Like there's a lot of these other things. The more you can build it out as a process, and the more that you can think through every one of those details and work people down the little dotted line path,
Yep.
the easier everything gets. But it's a ton of work.
Yeah. And all this, everything we just talked about goes back to the very first thing that I said, is that word of mouth. And my thought when I'm saying that is there's a fair amount of people who have a reasonably good business, like a really good business. They're making good money, but their entire brand is a phone number. That's the extent of it. Maybe they have a wrap truck or a logo on the side of their truck, nothing against that. And then they have a good name in the community, and the phone just rings when somebody needs something. And that's the extent of their marketing. They say, we work only for referrals. We don't need to, market or anything. That is like the biggest objection that most people will put in front of actually marketing is
This is fine. Everything's coming in.
everything's good.
Yeah.
I've got the work I need. But if you let's just throw a number out. If you took 20 grand and built a website, spent time on development, worked with a marketing team, got that all up and live, I could almost guarantee that your referrals would be stronger and they would pay more money because now they have something tangible. And now instead of it being just a phone number, it's now a brand.
Yeah.
The converse of that is a lot of guys who need the leads. So they go on the modern way of work for referrals is to go and pay a lot to Google, get all these leads coming in from Google. And if you're spending money on Google, I firmly believe you should stop and you should put all that money into your website and actually invest in something that's permanent and tangible rather than something that's
You own your website.
yours.
You own the content on your website. You own the conversions that happen on your website.
Yeah. So that's
Google is a platform that tomorrow morning, government regulations, we can't advertise the same way anymore. What happened to your funnel, your pipeline?
The same thing goes with Facebook, Instagram, like TikTok, YouTube. We're all at their behest. Like if we don't own our content or have another place, if they go down or we get banned for political views, for something that we said that was taken the wrong way, for whatever, like we're gone. As like they have the opportunity to completely shut us down. Your website, they don't have that opportunity. So those are kind of like the two main objections to this would be I work for referrals, or I get good stuff off of Google. I pay for those leads. I guarantee you your conversion rate will be better, or you'll get a better ROI on your referrals if you put the time into the website.
Well, even if you think about it, you get a referral. What's the first thing you're going to do?
You're going to check them out online.
Exactly.
I know Bob said it was a good company, but
what does he do?
Right. Oh, I just want to go see it. Yeah.
Exactly. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, man. Well, listen, do you want to add anything to that to wrap this up?
I know we did not quite finish the 5 steps.
Okay.
We just run through
Yeah,
let's go. I don't want to leave everybody hanging on that.
Let's go.
So we talked about the self-assessment, the self-selection. The next thing was the self-pricing, which we definitely touched on. And essentially what that looks like as you change the model that you're buying or the design that you're buying in the hardscape, you can see the price adjusting to it. And then the 4th step in being able to have somebody buy online is then being able to self-option.
Okay.
And what that looks like is, I like the black wheels instead of the aluminum wheels. I want the fire pit with gas. I want the seating wall with lights. I don't want a seating wall I want a wood burning fire pit. I want a pergola. I want a 2-top or 2 appliance outdoor kitchen, right? So the ability to self option your patio and to be able to make it yours is the fourth, that those options. I remember like when the Scion came out and they had like the XB, and you could go on the website, and this is way dating myself here, but you could go on
I know what you're talking about. I was like there with you.
and you could like put the decal on like the corner of XB, or you could change the rims, you could change the color. And it was revolutionary. You could go in and build this entire Scion in this website. And a lot of people wanted a Scion because it was like hip, it was cool, because you could go make it yours. It could have your personality. So that kind of optioning it out to make it yours, that fourth option. And then the last one is the self-scheduling. And I believe that this is the hardest thing to do. If your production is not running smoothly, you don't know how long things are taking you to actually produce, if you don't know what your crews can actually manage and take care of and handle and have a good flow of production, then you'll probably fail at that as well. When we put this live, my goal, and it probably won't happen at first, but my goal is that by the end of this, somebody will go on this website, they'll click buy on a patio, and we'll install it in 4 weeks. And it's a date that they picked. Self-selection.
It's pretty fucking wild. How are you going to do that? Like, you need to have everything completely
production in. I'm not saying we're perfect. I do not want to come across as arrogant and pompous and that we're perfect in any sort of way. We have our hiccups, but we do have a calendar that we keep active and live.
Yeah.
And if we can open up dates and keep and be pretty true to those dates. I'm not saying it would be on the day. It would be like a 3-day window. We'll show up inside of 3 days.
You want a competitive advantage. Like, that's huge. I pick when you come to build this thing.
Would you buy it?
100%.
Right.
And I'd probably pay more because I need this before Memorial Day weekend.
That's right.
All right.
Done.
That's the price. When do we start?
Right.
Plus or minus 3 days from that date.
75% of people do not want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
All right. I love it.
There you go.
This was super insightful. I really want to thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. This is fantastic. It's cold up here, but
It's not even that cold yet.
I know. It's also supposed to be -1 this weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna get pretty cold. Until next week, guys. Work hard, pave harder, and we'll see you next time on the Hardscape Growth Show. You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.